cabinet call on Prime Minister to ditch the European Convention of Human Rights. This has come up time and time again. A third of the British cabinet apparently want to join Russia and Belarus, two states, need I say more, outside the European Convention on Human Rights. Now, it strikes me that not a lot of people really know what it's about. All it's been talked about is it's stopping us from doing what we want to do and sending migrants to this country and that country. But I had a quick Google about the history of the European Convention on Human Rights. It was Winston Churchill was one of the people behind it. He promoted it as a never again protection against the horrors of the Second World War, with Britain urging others to join.
Yes.
If we didn't have it, there'd be no justice for the Hillsborough family, the human rights of victims of John Warboys, if people remember that, the black cab rapist. They were upheld when the Met Police were challenged to fail to investigate properly. So I wanted to have a quick look with you, if you wouldn't mind, just to remind people when they say, yes, get rid of this, human rights bill. It's stopping us from sending these illegal migrants to whichever country. What other rights would they be throwing out if we actually went ahead and did this? Because I think the Conservatives are banking on people not knowing what it's all about.
Yeah, you know what, Trisha? I think you're absolutely right in the first instance to talk about the history of this document. It was in the context of the horror of the discovery of what was suspected but not known until it was seen on those Pathé newsreels of the unprecedented Holocaust. 7 million died. More than 6 million Jews, hundreds of thousands of Roma, dissidents, Catholic priests, worked to death and gassed under the illusion of that revolting phrase, work sets you free. And it was a reaction to that and a feeling that Europe should bind itself together, at least in terms of values, to make sure it never happened again. And it had popular support in this country. Why? Because people had been to war, they'd been to Europe, they'd seen the horrors of it. And of course, now we're part of a generation. I was born in 1980. My father experienced the war as a baby. My mother was born after the war, You know
what? A lot of people are going to say, yeah, but that was then. We don't need it now.
Well, I tell you what, Trisha, look at the last 400 years of European wars. Regime change, massacres, unnecessary wars lasting decades in some instance. The borders, like the Pink Floyd song, the lines on the map moving from side to side, and whole societies being destroyed and needing to be rebuilt again because you have these
Joseph, I'm doing here what I know. I'll see the messages any minute now, saying, yeah. But what's that got to do with migrants? And I'm just having a look at some of the things that the convention secures. And I didn't know all of these things. It's the right to life, freedom from torture, freedom from slavery, the right to liberty, the right to a fair trial, the right not to be punished for something that wasn't against the law at the time, the right to respect for family and private life, freedom of thought, conscience and religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, the right to marry, the right not to be discriminated against, protection of property, right to education, the right to participate in free elections. So if they got rid of that, you could be banned. They can ban whoever they like to do any of this. The abolition of the death penalty.
And let's talk about these refugees, because they are refugees for the most part. 70% of them are granted asylum in the first place. So it's all very well saying that these are people who are kind of lags who are coming over to get a free ride. Our judicial system, for the most part, agrees that they're genuine. And that's a process that you don't read in The Sun. It's a process that's gone through by professional judges, not lawyers, government representatives, representatives of the judicial system who've heard all the facts. And as you've heard me say before, are naturally conservative. And which of those articles of the European Convention of Human Rights, I wondered, do they rely on most in their asylum applications? The right to life, freedom from torture, freedom from the right to liberty, the right to a fair trial. These are people who are persecuted. And how do I know that's the answer? Because they are the particular articles that are also in common with our asylum rules as to whether we grant somebody asylum, and most are. So to just suggest that this is some type of interference from an outside force, you know what? The background to this, Trisha, the bendy bananas, all those lies, as Polly Toynbee said in an excellent Guardian comment article, which I think you even forwarded to me, years of bogus stories from the Tories and their press. These are briefings sent to the Daily Express, to the Daily Mail, owned by non-doms. These are organisations that are designed to make.
But what people are not thinking of, if people said, yes, get rid of this, the European Convention, then we'll stop the Tories can send them away.
Yeah.
I think, am I right in saying people then have to accept, because with every right comes a responsibility. So we have to, I hope, if they ever have a referendum about this, and there have been rumblings about referenda about this, that people...
Another distraction, that's all we need. Carry on.
But people need to be aware that they would lose the right enshrined to things like a fair trial. They would lose the right to participate in free elections. They would lose the right not to be discriminated against. Freedom of thought. They would effectively leave the doors open to a police state.
And you know what?
Belarus and Russia don't sign up for a good reason.
But the funny thing is, that's the natural consequence. But actually, it's going to be replaced by a Bill of Rights, which will basically contain, albeit through domestic legislation that isn't reliant on Europe, pretty much the same rights anyway.
No.
So the myth that this will somehow change the way in which these rules are interpreted, when they will be going through the same British courts anyway, and it'll be the same British judges, except with the final right of appeal after the Supreme Court to the European Court of Human Rights. But most of these cases never got that far. Most of these cases were decided at the High Court or the Crown Court or the Court of Appeal, and as a result, there'll be some mythical, short-lived perception of victory to people who subscribed to the second myth, the earlier myth, that they were somehow in control of their lives because as Britons we were in control of what happened in the courts. The reality is these rules have existed. They'll continue to exist in a different form, and it's an opiate for the people. This was always lies to make us vote for Brexit. It was nothing to do with human rights. Life will pretty much remain the same, because it's unthinkable, as you've just pointed out, that the right to a fair trial, Magna Carta anyway, is just going to be withdrawn.
I know. Well, so, but I'm guessing the government will consult their lawyers about getting rid of it. Their lawyers will say, no, you can't do it. They'll spend millions in the course, and then they say, see, Europeans are still against us. We just spent a few of your millions, but it made good headlines. Let's move on. We've got a message. Hang on. Where's the message? Oh, just waiting for that to come up. Trisha, I expect you will not read this text out. The minute you say that, I'm going to do it. You seem to only mention Belarus and Russia. You should know that the EU has not joined and refuses to join the ECHR. Is that true, Joseph?
The EU is not a state. So there you go.
Oh, yeah, it has to be done state by state. Yeah, the EU can't. You can't. Answer. So each country has. Belarus and Russia are a country.
Yeah, the final, and it's a good point, but that's the technical reason. And the European Union and or the different treaties that make up what we regard to be the European Union include this convention that results in a final right of appeal to the European Court of Human Rights.
So all of those
member
countries
states
that
are signatories.
I was going to say,
and even Russia was a signatory up until I think about 10 or 15 years ago.
I wonder why.